All right, my reaction to the game against Newcastle, the result and player ratings. Merry Christmas, by the way, to all those that celebrate, and I hope it's been a good couple of days for you. A big win, one in quite bizarre circumstances, I'd say. First half was decent. I thought Newcastle probably started slightly the better team. Their press quite high up the pitch meant we found it difficult to get out. And quite bizarrely, after they had realised we were playing 4-2-3-1, and they got, I think Ramsdale went down holding his hamstring, he clearly wasn't injured, they got some information on to adjust their system in reaction to us playing 4-2-3-1. I actually think that seemed to impact on them in a negative way, because I thought we settled into the game from then, really, and the goal helped. Brilliant goal from Dorgu, great technique. Debate as to whether the keeper could do better, but who cares? It's a very good strike, and ultimately a good night for Dorgu, playing off that right hand side for the majority of the evening and doing very, very well in the right side of the three in behind Seshko. I thought that one of the turning points of the game for me was Mount going off. But I think we really missed Mount when he wasn't on the pitch. He's becoming quite an influence on the team. I think his press is good. His use of the ball is often very good. He links play nicely. Very intelligent football player, and I must admit has grown on me as time's gone by. As I think I mentioned in my last ratings video, he was decent again last night, and a decent first half performance. He came off at half time, young Jack Fletcher came on, and not long into the second half, the bizarre substitutions began, and he brought off Casemiro, which was just weird. And I think, did he bring off Casemiro for Yoro? I think he did, didn't he? And so he reverted really to a back five again, although at times it was like a back six, because Dalot was part of that as well. And we lost any semblance of shape when we had the ball. Well, off the ball, it was just part of the bus football, which I don't recall Amorim ever really doing before when we've had a lead. It shows obviously how much he knew that this win would mean if we got it, and also the fact that he's playing with a slim deck of cards because of the players that are missing. And I think it's easy sometimes to forget how many players we've got missing. Not just the AFCON players, there's players out injured. Like if you think Maguire, Dalot and Bruno are probably our three captains really, and all of them are missing. Mount goes off at half time, you've got Mbumo, Ahmad and Mazraoui, which is the right hand side of your pitch. It's a lot of players, in fairness. And is what we did in that last half an hour what I want to see from a Man United team? No, absolutely not. But that isn't the long-term plan. I don't know what is the long-term plan, if I'm honest, but that isn't it, and I know it's not. But nonetheless, it was quite strange, and Newcastle had, when you actually look back, they had some pretty decent moments and some decent chances, really. They hit the bar, they had one they had a couple that they should have done quite a lot better with. But we did, I guess, that's one of them where if you get the result, everyone goes, well, you dug in and you worked hard and it was ugly, but you got the grit and the determination and you saw it through. But, you know, Roy Keane was very much like, oh, I saw something different tonight, and the desire to keep the ball out of the net. I think that's a really easy thing to say when you win, and it's also really easy when you lose to say, where was the desire like against West Ham? And like I said, after the West Ham game, I didn't see any lack of desire to keep the ball out of the net. And last night, I didn't see any more desire to keep the ball out of the net. It just so happened that last night we maybe caught a break, and against West Ham we didn't. But neither game was particularly impressive from United. I love Roy Keane, but I think that's cheap punditry for me. It's like, oh, you won, so you must have dug in. You drew, so you didn't. That doesn't always work that way. But we got the result, and it's a big result because it takes us up to 5th. But also, when you look at our next games, Wolves, Burnley and Leeds, I can't remember if it's Burnley and Leeds or Leeds and Burnley, which way round it is. But there stands a real opportunity for us to win a bulk of points. I said if we get 9 out of those 12, you know, that's decent. We certainly have a chance to do that now, and I don't think it's a guarantee because it never is with this team. But we're 5th in the league, and obviously that'll change today probably because there's a few teams within reach that are behind us. We could end up about 9th or 10th by the end of the day. But over a 3 or 4 game period, if you over the Christmas and New Year period, if you get 9 out of 12 points, you've got a chance of being in and around that mix when you were already 6th, 7th, whatever it was going into the period itself. So significant result. Newcastle don't gain any ground on us. We get further away from them. You'd expect them to be there or thereabouts towards the end of the season, and we're a few points clear of them now. Player ratings, as often does, will give the video a little bit of structure. So let's get into that. Lemens, I'd say 6. He kept a clean sheet. He didn't have loads to do, I have to say, but one very, very good catch in the second half when we really needed it, a ball put into the box. He came with conviction, and he had a lot of bodies in between him and the ball, and he got it and it stuck. That in itself is worthy of a couple of points probably on a score, because it lifted everybody, and I think you want your goalkeeper to do that. A couple of minutes later he tried to do it again under less pressure and dropped the ball, but ended up recovering. I think he made one save where it was straight at him, but I don't recall him having loads to do, I must say. But 6. This is where it starts to get hard, like even remembering the team, because it's changed so much. But I think the starting, let's go with the starting team to start with. So Luke Shaw played left back. Steady again, I'd say another 7 from Shaw. He's playing well at the moment. Martinez, left-sided centre-back. 7. Very, very solid. A bit worried about him in a 2, but he wore the captain's armband last night and did well. Aidan Heaven, 7.5. A player of great potential, I think. Heaven, a real natural football player. Brings the ball out very nicely, reads the game well, seems very unflustered. And as part of the 2, which was a bit of a risk, I thought he was extremely steady last night and won a lot of balls that were in the air, and just those interventions that don't look particularly spectacular because they're not last-ditch tackles or whatever, but there were a lot of them, and that's what you want from your centre-back. 7.5 for me for him. The starting right back was Dalot. 6.5. Yeah, he was steady. I can't think of anything particularly spectacular that he did or anything massively noteworthy, but just thought in general I felt he had a decent game, so I'd say 6.5. Midfield 2 to start with was Casemiro and Ugarte. Casemiro was doing all right. Seemed quite strange when he got brought off. I'd say 6.5. He was breaking play up. He was keeping the ball quite nice and neat and tidy. Yeah, I thought it was a very strange decision to bring him off when he did. Ugarte, pleased for Ugarte last night. I'd give him a 7. A good performance. Ratted around, made a nuisance of himself off the ball, put his foot in. What I noticed with him last night is when a Newcastle attacker was sort of trying to get momentum, Ugarte was making an intervention without winning the ball, if that makes sense. Just a little nick or a little pull of a shirt. Sometimes free kicks were given, sometimes they weren't. Where he's just, I'm letting you know I'm here, I'm letting you know my presence is there, and you're not going to have an easy night of it. And that's my understanding of what he's in the team to do. And the lad needs time on the pitch. He's played 2 games, Villa and this one, and I can see an improvement. First of all, from the start of the Villa game to the end of the Villa game, when did he get brought off against Villa? I think he did. But particularly against Newcastle last night, I thought he was good, and the fact he stayed on and Casemiro came off says the manager thinks he was having a good game as well, I think. And then the 3 in behind the striker to start with was Mount, who I'd give 6.5 to. Didn't do anything brilliant or amazing last night, but as I say, the team looked so much better with him in it. And yeah, I sort of gave a little bit of a profile of Mount before when I spoke about him coming off injured. Cunha, 6. No doubt in the work ethic, no doubt in the endeavour, but final end product wasn't there last night. Bit of a disappointing night, but Cunha, for me, ultimately, I think, has the ability to be the replacement for Bruno in goals and assists. But last night, not particularly great. I'd give 6, mainly because of his work. It certainly wasn't worth any less than a 6. His work ethic was very good. Dorgu was man of the match for me, 8. Played on the right-hand side of that 3. Ran his socks off. Worked so hard for the team. Was blown out of his arse at the end, and I don't know why he brought Martinez and Shaw off and kept Dorgu on. But played in 2 different positions. Delivery was loads better. Confidence soared after the goal. Fantastic strike. Yeah, you could see when he was taking players on, he just looked to do it with a little bit more conviction. His crosses were better. His little 1-2s, passing moves, all those things were much slicker than they were before. And I don't know if it's my imagination, but I think players like Cunha were looking for him more last night. Whereas against Villa, I noticed Cunha a few times got the ball, looked, saw it was Dorgu and changed his mind. I might be wrong, but I think with some players they have to earn the trust of their teammates, and maybe he's one of them. But that will go a long way towards doing it, and will give his confidence a massive lift. Really good performance for that. I'm happy for him, and the match winner on the night. Seshko, you're going to think I'm picking on him. Probably, I shouldn't preempt that. I think 5 again is the best. Basically, everything I've said in previous player ratings in the last couple of weeks, just go to them and look at them again. Ball doesn't stick when it goes to him with back to goal. He's quite ponderous. As I stutter, I tell you that he's ponderous. The irony of that. He's quite ponderous. Yeah, I just don't see it. Don't see an improvement in his performance. Don't see where he really fits into this system, because I think we look far more fluid when we've got an interchangeable front 3. That might not be his fault as such, but he had one shot which hit the bar, but it's a weird choice of shot. You go across the keeper. Like, you taught that as a kid, that you go across the keeper. He doesn't look ready to play at this level, if I'm honest, at this stage. But then you look at the strikers that have come in the last couple of years. Well, it's him and Højlund. I don't know. Maybe there's a bigger problem here, but there's a different personnel in behind the striker now, so I'm not sure. Anyway, 5 out of 10 for me. Let me try and unpick these subs. Right, Jack Fletcher came on at half time. This is going to sound really harsh, and he's a young kid, and maybe I need to make more allowances for. I'd say 5.5, not because he did anything dreadfully wrong. I just thought the game passed him by completely, and he put his foot in a couple of times, but I forgot he was on the pitch a few times, and I don't think it was an ideal game for him to play in, but we didn't have loads of choices, so the game swallowed him up a little bit. But I completely understand that as a young player, that's going to happen. So there's no judgment in terms of longer term issues we're going to have with Jack Fletcher, or that he's not a really good player. I've been calling for him to be included, and part of that process is he's probably going to have a few games where he just gets minutes on the pitch. And he was obviously buzzing at the end because he's played, it's gone all right, we've won the game, and the team's trusted him for 45 minutes. So overall, it's a night where he'll think he's 8 out of 10. But in terms of his performance, I'd say 5.5. I'd love to see him, if there is an issue with Matt, I'd love to see him start against Wolves, because I think he could have quite a bit of joy in a game like that. But 5.5, but with no malice intended in that rating at all. Xerxes, similar, 5.5, didn't impact on the game at all, but wasn't his fault, really. He was supposed to be the outball, and every time it went towards him, he was on his own. So what could he do? What could he do but a 5.5? But there's a couple of times where maybe he could have brought it down a bit better. He could have perhaps got into smarter positions, linked play, but I mean, I'm being massively fussy. It's a 5.5, but he's a victim of circumstance, as is Fletcher, if I'm being honest. Then Yoro came on. Who else came on with Yoro? Anyway, Yoro came on, and it was a bizarre substitution because Yoro's been struggling recently and continued to struggle they had a lot of joy down that left-hand side. I thought Gordon had him on toast. And at times, we really needed Diogo Dalot to go and double up on Gordon. I thought it was a tough night again for Euro, again for 5.5. And then 2 late substitutions, which were absolutely bizarre. The ratings, it was Fredrickson and Malacia. There was only 3 minutes to go, and then there was 7 minutes of injury time, so they had 10 minutes each. Let's just say 6 out of 10 each. They didn't really, not enough time to get a rating really. But I want to just talk about it because we had family over. It's Boxing Day. My dad, my brother-in-law, my niece who's really into her football, and everyone was like, does he want to lose this game? You know, like, what's he doing? Why would you bring off Luke Shaw and Martinez, your first of all, 2 defenders, and then his obsession with changing the back line is strange, it's weird. You just taught, Leon, I think you said it in a message to me, you taught as a youngster, or you just know as a youngster, unless something's going wrong, you don't change your back line. Now, football's moved on, yeah, but I just don't see the benefit of it. I know they both had injury problems. They're both probably, fitness-wise, you have to be careful with them. But bringing them off with 3 minutes to go doesn't then safeguard them for the Wolves game. You don't go, oh, well, because we gave them that 3 minutes rest or 10 minutes rest with the injury time, they're now going to be all right for Wolves. You've done 87 minutes. You may as well do the whole game. It's a very, very strange tactic. And in the end, we got the result. But that was a proper head-scratcher. It really was. But look, we got the result, and I think what I'd have to say about Amorim is he's a fighter. He ain't giving this up without a fight, and he's completely changed the system last night. Then he's changed it back. Then he's changed it again because it almost became a 6 at the back. He's parked the bus, which isn't the way he wants to play, and ultimately he's got a result from it. So, back in the day, and you think, oh God, what's he going on about now? Back in the day, Ferguson would have teams that could do everything. This team can't. Some would say this team can't do anything that we've got now. But what I mean by that, people say, what's Ferguson's style of play? I think it was quite difficult to pigeonhole. It's not like Guardiola. Guardiola's probably quite an adaptable manager as well, but there's a very distinct way that he wants to play. And there's some managers down the years where you've said, all right, that's their way of doing it. Mourinho is a bit like that, although he could adapt as well. But Ferguson, someone actually said it on a comment on here, Ferguson probably wasn't a brilliant coach. No, he was a manager. He was a psychologist. And he was very clever at getting people like Brian Kidd and Steve McLaren and Carlos Queiroz, real top technical assistants who probably would do most of the coaching. But what I saw with Ferguson's teams was their style of play was winning. And Scholesy said that. Someone said, what would you say was Ferguson's style of play? His style of play was winning. Now, we have got a long way to go before we can say this about this team. But just using last night as an example, if we were watching that every week, I'd be up in arms about it. But the fact is, we played really, really well against Villa, and we deserved to win the game. And we didn't because we were too soft. We played superbly well for the majority of the Bournemouth game. We scored 4 goals and we drew the game because we were too soft. So the manager ultimately has said, you know what? I'm missing shitloads of players. We're too soft. I'm just going to park the bus for the last half an hour of the game and hope that we're good enough and hope there's enough bodies in and around the box to stop Newcastle from scoring. And it worked. Weirdly, even though we had so many people in the box, they still had quite a lot of openings and little passages of interplay and stuff. When other teams park the bus against us, we can't get a sniff. So I don't think we were particularly great at it, but we got the result. And the wider point I'm making about Ferguson was, if people don't remember this, but if there was times when it required us to just go ultra pragmatic, he'd do it. And last night was one of those times where Amorim, in his wisdom, decided we need to go ultra pragmatic to get a result here. So he did. So I don't expect to see that against Wolves. I don't expect to see it against Leeds and Burnley. But if with 15 minutes to go against Burnley we're 2-1 up and we're out on our feet and he's missing players, maybe he'll do that for the last 15 minutes of that game and we get another 3 points. No one's going to be complaining if we end up with 12 out of 12 in the 4 games that I mentioned. Newcastle, yes, obviously last night, Wolves, Leeds and Burnley. No one's going to be complaining about it then. Will we get those points? That's always the next question, isn't it? And that's for another day. But a good win, and you could see what it meant at the end. You know, I think it seemed a lot of the fans had stayed, and it was quite full at the end. Big roar at the end of the game. Players obviously cock a hoop. We've moved up to 5th. Woo! No, good result, and let's see where we go from here. As I say, bizarre game. Glazers out.